Alright, what's up everyone? In this video, I'm going to be going over my league draft. It's going to be a recap. Just going to go over what I was experiencing and my train of thought throughout my draft. Now, I came out with a pretty good team, I do believe. So I definitely think this video is worth watching for this upcoming season, especially if you haven't drafted yet. So in round one, you could see I I selected ninth overall, and I took Trae Young. Now, if you look at the 10th overall pick, it's Kevin Durant, and the 11th overall pick, which I can't believe he fell all the way to the second round, Karl Anthony Towns. I didn't take either one of them with my first overall pick. And my train of thought here was, even if I lose a little bit of value here, I wanted to get my point guard. I wanted the elite point guard, and I feel like you could only get one of those guys in the first round this year. And outside of you have Luka, Harden, Steph, and Lillard, and then Trae. So I wanted one of those guys, and I was hoping one fell to me. And then once Jokic went off the board at 7, I was relieved. I didn't care if it was Dame or Trae. I was taking them, and so even though I do believe Kevin Durant has higher upside than Trae this year, and Karl Anthony Towns, he can have higher upside, but I'm a little skeptical on his injury history. So if he fell to me in the second round, I would have taken him. But Sieber did a good job at grabbing the two players with the most value at picks 10 and 11. So my plan all along was to go guard heavy in my first 2 rounds, and I was hoping to go bigs in my next 2 rounds. But I was debating on Embiid at this point in the draft, because pairing Embiid with Trae Young could have been very nice for me with good percentages, not the best field goal percentage for a center either, but good free throw percentage and good all around board stats. But I did decide to go with Devin Booker because he is the second best 2 guard in the league right now, who is like a mini James Harden, and he can play. You could fit him in at the point guard position. So there was a lot of pluses for me with Booker. So that takes care of my 2 guards in this part of the draft. In my third round, unfortunately, as you can see in the second round, Bam went 18th overall to Rick, and then the first pick of the third round, Adam was smart enough to take Ayton. So after that, I was like, okay, I would still be willing to take Siakam, and look how much he fell. Like, if you watched any of my other videos, guys, Siakam falls in every mock draft I did, and just everything. And I don't understand why. He's a 2-1-1 guy, pretty decent on rebounds, 8.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, which is very good for a big guy, and 25 points on good percentages. He's all around a solid player to have. So the fact that so many people passed by Siakam, some people 3 times, in fact, that was a little bit mind-boggling, if I do say so myself. Anyway, so going into my draft, I was hoping he would follow me, and then he almost did. And if not, I was hoping Nurkic fell to me, and I was perfectly fine with taking Nurkic at this spot. And I know he's technically coming back from a leg injury. I know he got healthy and was playing in the bubble. And I'm a little bit worried, but I'm not worried enough where I was going to stay away from him. Now, I did pass over Vukovic, who I was hoping would come back to me in the 4th round. He did not. Sieber made a good pick with Vuk at that spot. So I decided just to go and get my 1B of a point guard. And I was debating between Russell and Morant at this point. And I think Morant, the only reason I didn't take him is because he doesn't have an outside shot, and I want a better free throw percentage, which he didn't have last year, which he could easily improve on this year. But I'd rather just wait and see what he can do, because even with his projections, comparing him to D'Angelo Russell is going to be a much better fit for my team with Trae and Booker. So I do feel like I made the right pickup with Russell at this point. And at this point, my buddy Rick texted me. He's like, "Bro, your team's looking scary at the start of the draft." I was starting to crack up. Um, but I after getting that text message, I started to feel good about my draft and my decision. So moving on to the fifth round, I just I really was hoping Michael Porter Jr., who went a few spots ahead of me, would have fallen to me in, well, really round 6, and he didn't. So uh, that was a little bit tough. I also was hoping maybe Christian would follow me since I didn't get Vukovic on my 4th round selection, and I did not want to be too guard heavy. But Zach LaVine just fell to my lap, and I was looking at this point. I was looking at Seeper's draft board, and I noticed he had no 2 guard, and I'm like, I can't pass on LaVine for my 6th round pick. I can't take a chance on anyone. And to be honest, I didn't even like anyone else at that point. So I had to go with LaVine and just go guard heavy. I went really guard heavy on my first 5 picks, and I wasn't planning to do that. So maybe at this point, if it's not working out for my team, maybe I trade a LaVine or Booker. I'm leaning more towards LaVine, but LaVine can easily have a breakout season. He had a very good season last year before the breakout, the COVID breakout and whatnot. So maybe he's going to ramp it up just like last season and perform well, I'm hoping at least. And then after Sieper picked his 5th and 6th round picks, I decided to take a risk on Porzingis. Again, I didn't like anyone there. And at this point, I was perfectly fine with the high upside Porzingis can give me compared to the high risk that he's going to also give me. In the 6th round, I feel like Nurkic's a little bit of a risk, but not too much to warrant him to label him as a risky player. And to go back to Trae Young, Devin Booker, both have been very healthy in their careers. D'Angelo Russell, he gets hurt every now and then, but not enough to label him injury prone. And LaVine, maybe he's doing like a John Wall, where if you guys remember, John Wall was hurt in his first few seasons, was labeled as injury prone, but during Wall's prime, he was an 82 game warrior, more or less. So I feel like that's the track that LaVine's on. So I feel like Porzingis was my number 1 risky pick. And in the 6th round, I'm perfectly fine with that because if you look, who's going to really fit my team if you look at all these guys? Tobias Harris, Chris Paul, Lonzo, Valanciunas, Green, Hayward, maybe, I don't know, Warren, Schroeder. Even looking at these guys, Covington, Aldridge, Kemba, who was ranked much lower. Harrell, who I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot stick, but that's just me. And the rest of these guys are questionable. So headed into my 7th round pick. At this point in the draft, if you guys watch my mock draft, you know in the 6th round I was going for Michael Porter Jr. I didn't get him. But you guys will also know I was perfectly comfortable drafting like one of 3 or 4 players. And Jaylen Brown was on that list. It was Porter Jr., then Jaylen Brown, so he was my second target in this spot. So I'm very happy he fell to me all the way to the 7th round. And I'm even more happy about it since Gordon Hayward's off the Celtics, and he should have plenty of usage this year. So I'm actually excited to have Jaylen Brown. And I'm a Sixers fan, but I've always liked Jaylen Brown's game. So I'm actually not gonna mind watching the Celtics and rooting for Jaylen Brown. So coming back over to round 8, after Seeper made his selections, I did something that's kind of interesting. I decided I didn't really like too many people, and the only other person I did like actually went right after my pick, which was Andrew Wiggins. So I decided, I knew Jaren Jackson wasn't going to fall to me in rounds 9 or 10. I knew it. So I reached a little bit and got Jaren Jackson because I like his threes, and threes are my team strengths, and he gives me another formidable shot blocker at like close to 2. I think it's like 1.7. And I think he's a perfect complement. If him and Porzingis can both get healthy, I think those two together are going to be lethal. Now, the only thing is they have to get healthy, which is why I think this is a bit of an interesting pick on my part. It could go really bad for me. My power forwards can really go to shit if both continue to be injured all season long. But I'll be really happy if one of them, specifically Porzingis more than Jackson, gets and stays healthy for the whole season. But I mean, if they both are healthy, I'll love it. But there is a chance that they both are on my IR for the good portion of the season. So moving on to my 9th round. All right, DeJounte Murray finally goes. I was debating on DeJounte Murray back in round 8 also. I didn't take him because I felt I had a solid point guard foundation with Russell and Trae Young and even Devin Booker. I felt I was fine with that. And not to mention Zach LaVine, like he's not a point guard either, but I just felt like my guards were so good. At that point, I could relax on the point guards, especially with who I was targeting in the later rounds. And not to mention Jaylen Brown, even though he's a set 2, he's my 3. He's actually the only small forward on my team right now, except I did pick up Harrison Barnes after I put Jackson and Porzingis on my IR. I picked up Derek White was also not drafted in 14 rounds, which I was very surprised about. Put a waiver claim for him first, and I got him, so I'm very happy about that. But moving on to round 9, as soon as I drafted, I was surprised, especially with all these centers that went between my picks. So you have Whiteside, Steven Adams, Miles Turner, Clint Capella. All have their weaknesses, all have their drama, like Miles Turner might be traded this year. Whiteside is in a timeshare with Holmes. Steven Adams is a new place. How is he going to fit in with the new team? But even with that, he has poor free throw percentages, so he wasn't my guy anyway. And same thing with Capella. Good team, just bad free throw percentage, and I didn't want that. So the fact that DeMarcus Cousins fell to me in the 9th round, I was so happy to take a chance, just to take a chance on him. As soon as I did, Best was texting me in the chat. He's like, "Oh man, and this might be the steal of the draft." And if anyone watched the first preseason game, Cousins looked pretty good. Not gonna lie, he looked pretty good. So I was happy about that. Coming over to round 10, I decided I probably would have gone with one of the Bogdanovics. Specifically, I would have gone after Bogdan. That's who I would have liked to have gotten. But I decided to go power forward in this position and go with Markkanen because at this point I knew Porzingis and Jackson were going to start the season on my IR, so I needed a power forward. So, and I like the fact that Billy Donovan has publicly stated Markkanen is going to get. He doesn't want Markkanen just to be a spot catch and shoot type of player. He wants them to take advantage of any mismatches he has during the season, and he wants them just to put the ball on the floor more. So I'm hoping Markkanen does that and succeeds and is a very valuable fantasy commodity for me this season. Now moving into my 11th round pick and 12th round picks, I went point guard here. I decided to go for upside. I decided to go with Killian Hayes, who's a rookie, an international player who's played overseas since he was 16. So for the last 3 or 4 years, he's been playing professionally in Germany. So he has an understanding already of what being a professional is all about and how to handle himself. Now the only thing he needs to work on is getting used to that NBA competition because he did not look good in his first preseason game. As a matter of fact, he looked downright awful. And I saw his stat line that he I believe he had 7 turnovers, which he's going to fit right in on my team if he does it all season long because I already have Trae Young. But I would like him to play a lot better than that. I think it could have been just the hype of being in the NBA and just having the butterflies in your stomach type of thing. And I'm hoping that's all it is. And then moving on to my 12th round pick, I decided to take point guard from Cleveland, Darius Garland. Now I took him, understanding he's still only 20 years old and he's still raw and he has ways to go. But the reason why I decided to take a chance on Garland is because Cleveland hasn't played in 10 months. And just imagine, you see the jump. He was a fifth overall pick in last year's draft, in the Zion draft. Now, you see rookies, if you watch my other video of young potential breakout players, I went over a list of the players in the last decade who have had breakout seasons, and a lot of them do it in year 2. And I thought Garland is a very good player to take that chance on this season because he hasn't had a typical offseason. He's had 10 months to improve his game all over the place. And if he took those 10 months and he took advantage of those 10 months, he could be the breakout player every one of us looks for every season. So I decided to take a chance on him, and I hope it pays off in that regard. So that's going to round out my point guards. So it's Trae Young, D'Angelo Russell, and then Hayes and Garland. And if either Hayes or Garland breaks out this season, my point guards are going to be stacked, and I'm going to be super happy about that. Another position I think I'm going to be severely stacked in is shooting guard, and mainly because Malik Beasley fell to me in round 13. Now, he might not have even gotten drafted, but he did follow me to me in round 13, which I felt like at this point in the draft, I felt really good about my draft, and I felt like I could take another chance on a player. Every single player I have taken outside of Porzingis, I targeted at some point and put in my queue list. So this draft went really well for me up to this point, and I was actually surprised to see Beasley still available. So I have Booker for my top 2 guard, and then I have Levine for my second 2 guard. Now, if Beasley can get 25 to 27 minutes a night, and he plays like he did for Minnesota, like he did last year, I'm gonna be really enjoying Beasley this year. I'm gonna be enjoying his outputs. Now, there's a lot of question marks with Beasley. I made a video on why you shouldn't take him no earlier than this round, to be honest. So, excuse me. So, there's a lot of risk on him, but why not take a chance on him? Look at who's available: Tim Hardaway, Saric, Wendell Carter Jr., Brooks, Robinson, Inglis, Rose, Crowder, Payton, Eric Gordon, Kendrick Nunn. Like, is there higher upside in this group? Like, in any of these players, is there higher upside than Beasley? Maybe you could argue someone. I can't. I don't think so, especially after what we saw from Beasley in Minnesota last season. So I really like that pick. And then coming back to my final pick, I was really happy about taking Wendell Carter Jr. And before I start on him, I do want to say my draft is a little bit different, or my league is a little bit different. Instead of us being able to max out on 4 centers, we can only max out on 3 centers to fill our roster in different ways, because I just don't think anyone needs that many centers. And that's how we've ran this league for years upon years, and no one's ever had a problem with it. And that's the reason why Carter Jr. fell all the way to the 14th round. Throughout the draft, I probably would have taken him in rounds 11 or 12 if it was a 4 center league, or even probably not over Markin, but I probably would have been highly considering him, and I was at the rounds 11 and 12 spots. But since I knew most of the players already took centers and were full on centers, and Um, I knew there wasn't just Carter Jr. There was like a few centers that I was perfectly fine at taking at any point in the draft. So whichever one fell to me, I was perfectly fine with. And I was targeting Carter Jr. and I was very happy with him as my final piece to my draft puzzle. So if we come back up here and we look at my team overall, I really do like it. Got Young and Booker to round out my backcourt. Nurkic, who seems like everyone's high on. So I was happy to get him in my third round. Now Russell and Levine to back up Trey and Booker, I was very happy with. Porzingis and Jaren Jackson are going to be they're my risky picks of the draft. And if either one of them, even specifically Porzingis, comes out and stays healthy, he's going to shine. He should shine, and it's going to be an awesome pick for me. Now, I also picked up Jaylen Brown to fill out my 3 spot. Technically, he's a 2, but he's in my 3 and should be in line for a lot of work this season. Speaking of a lot of work, I think DeMarcus Cousins is going to be putting a lot of work in on his opponents this year. At least I hope so after what I saw last night. Then we have Mark Cannon, who's going to be a hit or miss. Hayes and Garland, who I'm hoping both have high upside. Beasley, who played really well for Minnesota last year, and Carter Jr., who is under a new head coach, and just like Mark Cannon. And we should see more of an offensive role for Carter Jr. this year. So that's my draft. That's my lineup. That's how I'm going to start the season. And I do want to say that I put Porzingis and Jackson on the IR. Picked up Derek White and for now Harrison Barnes, but I may swap him out for someone else at the small forward position. All right, guys, that is my draft take. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope maybe you can take something away from this video. And don't forget, guys, be sure to like this video if you did enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe. I plan on dropping content all season long. All right, guys, that's it for me. Have a good night.